Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee Talk with Brandy. In the next couple of weeks, my friend Jason's going to be coming back to have another round, and we're going to talk more about ADHD and the things that he's gone through. I'm hoping that you guys had a good Thanksgiving and that you were able to be around people who are kind and loving to you. And if you weren't, I hope that together we can find some healthy, happier connections so that we can move forward and enjoy holidays with people who are kind to us. I was inspired by a gentleman that I follow on Instagram just this last week, and he was sharing an experience that he had had about being brave and stepping outside of his comfort zone to create a connection with someone. So I thought it'd be fun to tell about a story of a time that I met somebody, and I'm a pretty outgoing person, and I'm pretty bubbly, as many of my friends would say. So I think sharing the story is helpful. At least I hope it's helpful. But I'm just thinking about sometimes we're so scared to put ourselves out there because we're so scared of rejection. And in the last 8.5 years being single, I have been rejected a lot, and I've had a lot of opportunities to come to grips with being rejected and a lot of practice at healing myself and making sure like I can move forward. So when you get to this point in your life where rejection isn't like super scary, I mean, definitely I don't want to be rejected. I don't want to be hurt because it's hard and it hurt. We actually feel physical pain when we are rejected because it lights up the same part of our brain where we feel physical pain. So if you're going through a breakup or a rejection, those kind of things, the same parts in our brain light up. And that's why when we're rejected, it can feel really painful, and it can feel, obviously it can feel really personal. And I have learned my best to not take things so personally. And so in this sharing this story, I'm putting myself out there with the fact that I was rejected in the end. But I would never take back what I experienced because it was so fun. So several years ago, I was flying home from Arizona, and I didn't have an assigned seat on the plane. So here I am trying to figure out where I'm going to sit, and the plane is pretty packed. And I'm walking down, not seeing very many places that I want to sit. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye to the right of me, I spot the most handsome man I've seen in a long time. And guess what? The seat right next to him in the center was free. And so I was bold. I'm like, nope, I'm going to go sit there. I'm going to go talk to this guy. And I sat down, got comfortable, and within moments, this gentleman and I started talking. And it was really clear that there was a lot of chemistry, and it was so fun. Maybe I'll share his name. His name is Leo, and I've never seen him again, which is kind of sad because he's so cool. And anyway, I sat next to him, and we just started small talk in the beginning. And you know, if you sit down and talk to me, I cannot stay surface very long, and so small talk to me ends up really boring me pretty fast. And because I'm a peer support specialist, one of the opportunities that I have is to really sit and listen to people. And so I'm always, I guess if you want to call it, on the clock, but it's just me naturally. So I've been blessed to be in a world where I can do peer support and really be myself. So within a very short amount of time, we end up talking about a little bit of deeper things, and to his surprise, he said, "You're so easy to talk to." And I said, "Well, good. You know, I hope that you feel safe talking to me." Now, I don't remember word for word our conversation, so if he by chance sees this video and wants to add in like his perspective of what he experienced that day, that would be fantastic. Anyway, there's just a lot of chemistry, and I was very physically attracted to him. And there was a lot of banter and a lot of fun. Now, mind you, I have no idea what the girl next to me was even thinking. I was so present with him And I think that's so important to talk about, even just for a second, now that I'm thinking about it. Being present with people is not an easy thing to do if we've experienced trauma in any capacity, because being present requires us to not be time traveling. And I learned that term pretty recently when I was at a conference, the 90 by 30 conference. And it was brought to my attention that if we're not being present with somebody, we're time traveling. And that looks like, you're worried about the future or you're worried about the past. And so there are some techniques that they were talking to us about. How do we become present in this moment? And I wish I could have spent more time talking to them, because I'm very interested in that concept, because I really do understand, like, if people aren't present and trauma is present, like, it's asking people to acknowledge trauma, and that's not always easy. And that's what I do in my job as peer support as well. And they were talking about just being aware of the moment and grounding ourselves to the grounding techniques. Sorry, not grounding yourself, but grounding techniques of being aware and actually being present and asking yourself what you're feeling in the moment. So if you are with somebody and you recognize that you are not truly present in that moment, if you want to learn something from that moment, ask yourself what it is that you are feeling. What am I feeling at this moment, and why am I not being able to be present? And that can help us to attune a little bit more to the things that might be challenging. And so I was very present with him, and I wasn't even thinking about the girl next to me. I didn't care. I don't even know what she was thinking, but sometimes you read those stories where, like, somebody's twittering, like, oh my gosh, I just saw this couple, they just met at the airport, and that plays out. But anyway, so this guy and I were having the greatest conversation in my perspective. And he said to me, you know more about me than some of the women I've dated. And that really took me by surprise for a minute, because I was like, wow, I really didn't feel like I knew very much about him. But in his perspective, he thought that he had shared a lot with me. So it was very eye-opening for me. And being a fan of body language and being super playful, I said to him, well, I can tell exactly what you're thinking right now. And, mind you, this is about 2.5 hours in. So we don't have a ton of time left on the plane. And I was just like, well, I can totally tell what you're thinking right now. And he was like, oh yeah, like, you can really tell me, like, actually think what I'm thinking. And I was like, yeah, I can pretty much tell. And he said, so what am I thinking? And I was like, well, you see, you're leaning into me as you're talking to me. And at the same time, your voice is going quieter. So when somebody's leaning into somebody and their voice goes quieter, whether they realize it or not, that's an invitation to get closer to somebody. So I can tell that you want to get closer to me right now. And not only that, your knee is touching my knee. So my guess is that you really want to kiss me right now, but you're on this plane and we may never see each other again. And I think you're pretty sad about that. Now, mind you, he's kind of laughing like, oh my God, whatever. So we just pursue this conversation, and we're coming into landing. And I had moved forward from that conversation, hadn't thought more about what I had just said to him, because we laughed it off, and it was just really fun. And just as we're about to land, Leo leans over to me and he whispers, he's like, come closer. And I was like, okay. So I leaned in, and to my surprise, he kissed me. And it was one of the most fun times that I have ever had. And I will always have fond memories of that. So as that had happened, of course, like, this rush of adrenaline and all of this excitement, and he asked for my phone number, so I gave it to him. And before we get off the plane, he's like, well, I'm going to text you, and I want to make sure that you text me back, so I want to make sure that you gave me the right number. And I was like, oh my God, like, why would I not give you the right number? I totally like you. And he's like, well, I don't know, some people do that. And so it turns out, I gave him my number, of course. And in the weeks that came about, we had some fun conversations. He was in a different part of the city that I was, and he wasn't actually staying where I'm at. So it was a little bit sad in that aspect. And we were trying to get together. At least I wanted to, and it seemed like he did. And, we just had some really great conversations in between the two of us. And I really grew to appreciate this, whatever, this friendship or whatever it was. I don't know. It was super fun. And at the end, he had texted me out of the blue, and I don't remember exactly what it was, so I'm just kind of going to go off the feeling of what he said to me. But he said something similar to like, you're one of the most incredibly kind, beautiful souls that I have ever met. And I was so grateful that he said that, because I feel like so often we're afraid to tell people that we really care about them. And I think the hardest part is he ghosted me after that. And this is where I'm going to talk about, it's learning to not feel personal about rejection. How do we move forward from rejection? How do we move forward to making the most of the moments that we have in this life and putting ourselves out there a little bit to have some fun or whatever, to be present in the moment? And I don't know if he'll ever see this video, and I have no idea, but I just want him to know that he is one of the most amazing people that I've ever met, and I would love to hang out with him even one more time. And just talking about how often we are so scared to put ourselves out there because of fear of rejection. And I know that fear, I feel it. There's even times in my life, if I meet somebody and they're kind of into me, there's been times where my walls have been up a little bit too. And luckily, I have been able to tell them that I feel and I see and I hear that you are liking me and I like you too. And at the same time, this is what has happened to me. So I'm a little bit scared and I don't know what to do with that. And I don't know whether that's wrong or right. I'm not this relationship guru. Obviously, I've been single 8.5 years. But really, what it comes down to for me is, if we're talking about healthy, happy relationships, like being able to communicate with somebody on an open level like that is such a beautiful thing. So I hope for anyone watching this that you're able to push past that fear sometimes, because it is scary. And you know what? Maybe you will get rejected. I mean, I had no idea on that 3-hour plane ride that by the end of that ride that guy and I would kiss. And it was wanted. I appreciated him. And I still appreciate him. I appreciate that time and that moment of 3 hours in the air that I had with somebody. And I will never forget him. And I hope that as we move forward in our own personal lives and relationships, that we will be able to heal from the things that are painful to us so that we can connect with one another. Because in that moment, when he had said to me, you know more about me than any of the girls I've dated, or most of the girls I've dated, it really took me by surprise. And at the same time, it really, as I'm sitting here talking about it, we are so scared to truly and honestly connect with someone. We have social media everywhere. We have all these things that connect us. And at the same time, the reason why it's not connecting us is because we are not being authentic. We are not leaning into conversations. We are not truly being seen. And that is what, as we go through and read Brene Brown and Dr. Mate stuff, to be seen and heard for everything that we are is where true connection lies. That vulnerability that we're so scared of, that's where we're going to connect. And that moment on that plane, I didn't care. I mean, you know what? Is he going to reject me? And then I didn't know. You know what I meant? I just was so present in that moment that I let go. I had fun. We laughed together. And it was a moment that connected me and him. And even though, for whatever reason, he wrote that text and never talked to me again, I don't know. I don't know why he did it. But you know what? He left me with the thoughts that he believed that I was a good, kind-hearted soul. And maybe in that moment, he didn't feel worthy of that. I don't know. I know for me that I have pushed away good men in my life when I was younger because I didn't feel worthy of love. And so I know what that's like. And if you're feeling that right now, I hope that you can come on this journey with Coffee Talk with Brandy and that we'll get to know one another a little bit more, because I have been there. I have pushed good people away, and I'm no longer there, and I want those good, kind people in my space. And whether or not he wanted to be in that space or he didn't, I don't know. And maybe you could come up with your own like ideas of what happened. And oftentimes I know it's really hard too. Like, I'll validate the fact that our brains want to have closure and things. And so I have found in my own life, the more I have healed my own self from my own trauma, the more I have healed from the pains in my life, and the more curious I become with other people's behavior versus judgmental or anger, the more I'm able to realize that there could be all these possibilities why somebody rejects us. And so often we take it personally. And in my own life, I used to do that. And for me, in my healing, I took it personally because as a young child, I didn't feel seen and heard. And it felt like my whole life and my whole childhood, like I was doing everything that I possibly could to keep peace within my home, to take care of everybody else. And that's not a child's job. But that's what I did, and I know what many of us do, is we take care of the things that are not right when we're younger. So as we get older and we go through experiences of rejection, there's that familiarity piece that comes back into play. So I challenge you, if there's some of that fear in your life, that you will find a way or find some vulnerability to push through. And I cannot promise you that you will not feel pain. I cannot promise you that you won't feel rejection. But I can tell you that it does get easier when we practice these skills and when we practice knowing that we are worth it. You are worthy of love and belonging exactly as you are. You deserve to be around people who love you, who see you, and who validate you. I want you to know that I care, and I'm super excited to continue moving along with Coffee Talk with Brandy. My voice is a little crazy this week because I've endured a cold and I'm still getting over it. So it may sound like I was crying through some of this, but it was really, a lot of it was cold, and yeah, I was tearing up a little bit, but that's just part of life. Anyway, I hope you guys have a beautiful week. I will talk to you soon, and I care.